68 text justification. This question is quite difficult because there are many things to consider, but coming up with the logic for me was fairly straightforward. So here we're given an array of string words, and then we're given a max width. We have to justify each row and return them as our output. But the way we justify them is for all the rows except for the last one, they should be evenly distributed, and then the last row should only be left justified. So what I mean by that is, suppose there are 4 words in one row, so I'm basically taking each element of a list as a row, because for me it looks like a row. So suppose we can use 6 spaces here. We have to put 2 spaces each. But if we can only use 5 spaces, we have to take the ones on the left first. So it will be two spaces for the first 2 and then 1 space for the last one. If there are 4 spaces available, we just only put 2 spaces for the first one. And the last row is fairly straightforward. We just put 1 space in between, and then the rest of them should be like empty space. So that's the problem. So let's see how we can approach this question. So the basic logic for me was we have to add, so there will be a list of string row output. I'm only going to add the word if the length of the word plus the white space, there should be at least 1 space. So the length of the word plus 1 space plus the length of the word is less than the max width. So in that case we add them up. Otherwise, when we add this word to the word we have, if that is greater than the max width, we have to justify whatever we have and then start again. So to do that, we do need a for loop that iterates through the words. So it would be words.length. And then here we're going to have some sort of a condition. So this row length is nothing but, so I said the row output contains each of the word as we traverse through the words. So suppose we have the first word in our row output, and this row length will store the length of the word. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a row output dot size. Why did I put that size? Because this size because we only have 1 word here, this size basically represents the white space, the 1 space we have, plus the row length, which is the length of the word, plus the word we are looking at. The words are I. If that is greater than the max width, meaning we have to justify them. We have to justify our row output. So meaning we have to justify whatever we have. It could be 1 word, 2 words, or 3 words. So we have to justify. I'm just going to call it rowJustifiy method. So we have to call our rowJustifiy method. And then we will store it in our say list of string total output. So we can just simply add them up. So it will be total output dot add whatever we have from just rowJustifiy, because rowJustifiy will return the string that is justified. So that's the basic logic. And then we obviously need to have I'm going to use blue color for this one. We need to have a rowJustifiy method. So how does a rowJustifiy method works? So suppose there are 4 words like this, and then our max width was 16. So how many spaces, and then say they are 2 each. The length of the words are 2 characters each. So how many spaces do we have? So we say available spaces is actually equal to the max width, and then we have this variable row length, which keeps the length of all the row output words combined minus the row length, and then it will give us it will give us 8. So we have to distribute 8 spaces evenly. And then how many gaps do we have? It's always the number of words minus 1. So number of words would be from our row output. So it will be row output dot size minus 1. And the question is, how many spaces should each gap have? So that's the tricky thing. So there will be another integer array. I'm going to call it each gap. So this will store each of the spaces for each gap. So what's the rule for it? So we do know that there are 3 gaps. So we do know that there should be 3, 3, and 2. How can we put them in equation? So if you just simply do 8 divided by number of gaps we have, which is 3, it will give us 2. So what we can do is we can initially put 2 gaps each, and then if we do 8 modulus 3, it's also going to give us 2. So these 2 I'm going to give to the first one and then to the second one. Okay. So there will be some logic for that. I'm not gonna write them in code because it will be just too long. And then now that we have our number of spaces for each gap, we can just simply iterate through the row output we have, and then we can just append. So there must be some string builder. We will just append the row output value, and then here after appending row output, we are going to iterate through the each gap int array we have. We've identified, so we have 3, 3, and 2. Here we are going to iterate and then again append empty space. And if we do that, we're gonna leave one word out, and then at the end of the for loop we can just append the last word. Okay. And there's one thing. Suppose we only passed on one word. So we only passed on one word here, and then that was length of 14. So we can't really evenly distribute them, but we just simply add 2 spaces at the end. So we can see from example 2, there's a very long word here, and then we added all the spaces at the end. So it's like if there's a one word, it has to be left justified. And so we're gonna have some logic for that one. It's pretty simple. We just have again string builder, add this one, and then if the string builder's length is less than the max width, we just keep adding those adding white spaces. Alright, so that's the logic. Oh yeah, just forgot one thing. So if it's greater than the max width, we apply rowJustifiy. Otherwise we just keep adding the words and incrementing the row length. And then there will be a logic for the last row. Last row kind of follows the same logic as this one. We just add the okay, I'll explain as I go along. So it was a very long description, but let's do it one by one. So here we do need the list of string and row output, which is new array list, and I'm just going to import java.utl, and then there will be list of string total output, new array list, and then there will be int row length, which is equal to 0, and I'm going to iterate through iterate the word length, and then I plus. As I said, we need to have a condition. So if row length plus row output dot size plus the word we're looking at, words dot I dot length, if that is greater than the max width, we have to justify them and then add it to our total output. Total output dot add justify, say rowJustifiy. What do we need for a rowJustifiy method? Let's write down our method. So private, it will return a string, rowJustifiy. We do need int words, what did we call it? Int row length, and then we do need a list of string row output, and then we do need int max width. Okay, so we have to, we're going to use them. Okay, before we do that, let's add what happens if we don't justify them, meaning that if we can put more words to our row, we can just simply say row output dot add current words, and then row length will just become okay, there's a typo here. You have to be very careful not to make any mistakes. Words dot I dot length. Okay, that's what we need to do. Alright, so our rowJustifiy method. So we have to take into account of the first scenario, meaning that if row output dot size is equal to 1. If there's only one word to it, it has to be left justified. So we can say, actually we can have a string builder. Initially, string builder justified row equals new string builder. And then if row output the size is equal to 1, we can just say justified row. I'm gonna probably copy and paste. Dot append. What are we going to append? We're going to append the row up, the word in the row output, which is going to be get 0 because there's only one word to it. And then we have to add the empty spaces at the end. So if while justified row dot length is less than max width, we append empty spaces. And then, so that's our justification done. and after that we just return justified row to string. Okay, and the next one is what we are interested in. If it's not the case, what do we need to do? We need to make a available space gaps in each gap. So it will be int available spaces is equal to max width minus row length, and then number of gaps, int gaps. Number of gaps will be row output dot size -1, and int each gap. How many spaces each gap needs to have will be new int simply the number of gaps. Alright, so let's assign each gap. To do that we have to use arrays.fill method. So arrays.fill, what are we going to do? We're going to fill each gap with available, each gap needs to have available spaces divided by number of gaps we have, and that's gonna give the minimum number of gaps each minimum number of spaces each gap needs to have. And we also have to update our available spaces because we're kind of assuming that we've already used up all of them, which will be a number of gaps. Alright, so now we have to use the remaining spaces to the ones on the left. So before int I equals 0, and then I is less than available spaces, and then I plus plus, we just simply do each gap dot I plus plus. So each gap gets one more spaces each. This is, and at this point we are going to apply our justification. So for int I equals 0, and then I is less than row output dot size. No, it has to be the gaps. And then I plus plus. And we are going to append. So we have our justified row here. Justified row dot append row output dot get I. So we're basically putting one word by one to our justified row. Okay, that's unfortunate. Our iPad just died. And then at this point we need to have another for loop to apply our gaps. So it will be int j equals 0, and then j is less than each gap dot I, because when we are looking at the first word we have to apply the corresponding. So when we're looking at the first word we have to apply the first gap. We're looking at the second word we have to apply the second gap. So it will be j plus plus. Here it's again justified row dot append empty spaces. And that's our justification done, but we have to consider one thing. So if there are 4 gaps, so we only worked for the 4 gaps. The reason being is it has to match with each gap we have. So if you have 4 gaps, we appended the 4 words, but there should be one more word at the end, because having 4 gaps meaning that there are 5 words, but we only used up 4 words, so we have to add the last word at the end. So it will be justified row that append a row output dot get so what's the index for the last word? So again, if there are 4 words, meaning that the index for the last word will be, and if there are 4 gaps, the index for the last word will be 4. So it would be matching with the gaps we have. And then that's our justification fully done, and then we return justify the row to string. So we have to put in our parameters in. So it would be row length, row output, and then max width. Right, so after putting our justified row into total output, we have to remove all the elements in our row output. So it will be row output clear, and then we also have to reinitialize row length to 0. Alright, so we might be thinking that's it, but that actually isn't. So if there are, suppose the max width is 5, and then we put in, say, 2 words to it. We have 2, max width was 5, and then we have 2 words in row output of length 3. Length 3. So if we do that, this condition does not satisfy. So we have some values in our row output. So that word, and then that isn't correctly justified. And that actually represent the last row. So here we have to do left justification for our left row. How do we do it? We do pretty much the same step as we did here. So we do need some sort of a string builder. I'm just gonna call it, just find the one typo. Why isn't it working? So string builder has a last row, calls new string builder, new string builder. So there can be multiple words in our row output. So there can be 2 or there can be 3. We just simply need to join them with the empty space, and then we can use string.join method. How are we going to join them? With the empty string. And then what are we going to join them? Row output. And then one thing to know, the last row, so suppose we join them to like this, I, M, and then the max width was up here, and then our string builder finishes here. We have to add empty spaces at the end, just like we did here. So we can just say while last row dot length is less than max width, we append last row dot append empty space. All right, but there's actually one more thing to consider. We don't always call them. It could be the last word we have might satisfy this condition, and then the row output might be empty. And so we have to do if row output is not empty. Okay, that's it. Right, so if it's not empty, we just join them and then append, and then we have to make sure to add that to our string builder, our total output. Dot add last row to string. Alright, and then at the end we return total output. Fingers crossed, let's hope it works. Okay, line 29. Oh, okay. Should be comma. Why did I do that? Such a silly mistake. Okay, it's working. Let's submit. Okay, it's about 60%. But I'm happy with the 1 millisecond, and this is the method I came up with. So I also looked at the correct solution. I can see that it's much tidier, much shorter, but I didn't really want to spend time understanding this. I'm happy with the method I came up with. Right, so that's it.